It's wonderful to see all your faces. We're so pleased that you're here with us. And so, as many of you are old friends, Friday Cafe is our professional network for community and family engagement. And we're here really because of you. Members of our community asked us to convene more often. And so this is our second online Friday Cafe. We'll have another one coming up at the end of the month, and we'll announce that date. And we're going to be planning a few more sessions because we have had such a response to this. For the first session, we had about 150 people registered, and for this session, we've had over 250 people registered. So I've called us a network for a long time, and I think I'm going to add to that a community. So I think right now, connecting and being in community for people who do this work is really, really important so that we can strengthen ourselves and do the work we need to strengthen our families. And I want to welcome, we have people from other states too. The announcement went out on a national listserv. So welcome everybody to Connecticut. So I want to introduce my partner, my person that I go to when I want to take healthy risks and have new ideas. She's always there for me. Everybody needs a friend like this. So Betsy Laborious from CREC is also facilitating. And I also do want to do a shout out also to Glorimar Claudio from CREC, who is our behind the scenes magician and keeps everything going. And I know you all have received many emails from Glorimar, and we truly couldn't do this without her. So Betsy, let me turn it over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're very, very happy to see everyone here this morning. What Judy didn't say is this is our 6th year in terms of our Friday Cafe. What we are doing is, you know, a little different, of course. We talked a little bit before. We're used to hugging each other and seeing each other as smiles in our Friday Cafe. So right now what we're doing is we are really doing our Zoom meeting. Judy, if we have that other, yeah, there we go. So what I wanted to talk just a little bit about, so for our friends who are here, our community members who come all the time, but for our new members, we always start with who we are and what we do. And so we are a network for people who work at the intersection of families and schools. And that means that that represents a whole lot of different professional communities and families, and we think that that's probably one of the strengths of our networking meeting. Our goals are to build connections, expand thinking, and to develop a robust professional community for family engagement. What we knew is, and what we found out 6 years ago, is that there was really not an entity, a place to go for people who really did the work of family engagement. And that was really the initial start 6 years ago, and we've been growing ever since, and we're happy for your presence. One of the things that you can see that our values, you can read the values that are there, but one of the things I would like to stress is that third bullet, which is a safe lab. So we're trying to model what we hope always we provide is a safe lab for people to be together, a space that we can be together, and to try out, as Judy said a lot of times, healthy risk taking, innovative thinking. So today we are taking a pretty healthy risk. We now have 150 people who are registered and online. We anticipate that number to go up. Again, we just want to welcome you and thank you for participating in our network. So next, our next piece is really to welcome. And Judy's gonna, I think Judy, you're gonna introduce, right, both Erica Forte, the superintendent from East Haven, and also Julie Church, who is the Director for Family and Community Engagement in their school district. So we're going to kind of toss it over to both Erica and also Julie Church.
Hello, good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Friday Cafe conversation this morning. We really value the opportunity and the time this morning to be able to share and partner and talk about how we can engage with our families more effectively, ultimately, resulting in deeper connections with our community. Our district has certainly learned a lot about our family engagement capacity and our adaptability over the past couple weeks. Just this past week in a Zoom meeting with our district family and engagement committee, we were talking about all of the school and district engagement activities and initiatives that were scheduled that we recently had to cancel due to the school closure. And what was really astonishing was that while very disappointing and unfortunate, we never would have realized our capacity or even had the opportunity to engage with our parents and community the way we are right now during our school closure and our distance learning. We've learned so much and had the chance to make some really significant changes and adjustments, not only in the way we seek information from families, but also in the way we communicate, and the way we respond and engage with them. In some ways, we feel even more connected and knowledgeable about their needs, the resources we can provide them and the supports we give them, and also the ways in which we can engage them more effectively and efficiently. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Julie Church, our District Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, and she's going to go into a little bit more detail on our work. Thank you again for having us.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. Whoops, I need to hit return. There we go. So we wanted to share with you some of the topics that we're going to even discuss in the breakout session. And that's, what are we hearing from families? What information have we gathered? How are we listening to our special needs populations, our EL families? And what is that information allowing us to then plan for and provide? So how are we really responding to that, to their needs? Our data collection has been formal. We've sent out 3 surveys in the past 8 weeks. We started, like all districts, I believe, with a technology needs inventory. And we were fortunate we had already issued one-to-one devices to our students in grades 3 through 12. And we had some available devices for our kindergarten through grade 2 students. So Connecticut, we're very lucky to have those devices and that so students can engage online in the distance learning. I know that some other states that may be participating may not be as fortunate. But our surveys were just one way of collecting collected. So we link to all social media groups, our parent family organizations, our community groups, and we read those and we listen to what individuals are saying. They help us to ask the questions that we need to be asking to make sure we're providing the needs that are out there. So our technology needs survey, you can see we provided 450 additional Chromebooks even after our distribution. So after all families we thought we had reached all families, we needed to issue 450 additional ones. We have a tech hotline that is accessible in the evenings. We staggered our tech department so that we are available for families when families have the questions, realizing that our days are different. Every family is unique. People aren't able to work through normal school hours anymore. Oftentimes it's not until late at night when both parents are working that they can spend the time with their child. So we have the flexibility in scheduling so that individuals can connect and have their questions asked. our tech department is going above and beyond, as I'm sure in your districts as well. It's just crucial at this time for them to be. Our second highest spoken language is Spanish in East Haven. So all of our surveys, all of our district communications are sent out in both languages. And that's very, important. I know that I have a colleague on the call right now that has Portuguese as a predominant language in their district. Really identifying the language needs and responding to that is important. Our family survey, our second one that went out, had very positive feedback. So over, nearly 85% of our families feel supported or very supported by our district, and that was good to hear. But there's still that 15% that we want to make sure that we're reaching. So we carefully analyze the things that they've shared and try to make sure we put in steps to meet those needs. So what did families want to know more about? Well, there were 4 areas that surfaced. One is the social emotional well-being of students. They wanted more information on that. Guidance from teachers on prioritizing tasks and reducing some of the workload, and ideas for staying fit and healthy for their students, and building structures and routines. Now the request to reevaluate the workload not only came from the survey, but multiple communications came into principals, into central office, really looking at fatigue over time. The district is trying to make sure that families are able to keep up with the work, that it's not too much, evaluate and make modifications as we go. And our Commissioner Cardona on Tuesday spoke of this in his Commissioner's Roundtable, that we really need to be cognizant of the fatigue that families will experience and are experiencing, and modify and adjust as we go. So communication then goes out from our top down, and we have a wonderful superintendent who's on board and is very clear in communication and very responsive to families. And so that communication quickly went out that we needed to modify and adjust our work in response to what we were hearing. So our assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction also, is taking a close look at the needs of families, and they wanted structures and routines. So she has put together some screencastifies on how to help organize your home and, a space in your home, how to create schedules to meet the needs of your family, whether you're working, whether you have parents at home or caregivers at home. Sometimes, we have many students who are at home by themselves during the day with essential workers in the home. So just really giving lots of variety and options. And she creates those in short little screencastifies. And we've developed in district a district learning hub for families. The district learning hub is a resource that teachers can, there's a section for teachers, there's a section for students, and there's a section for parents and families. And this, there's community resources that you can access here. There are many, many screen 2-minute versions of how to create the space, how to connect with tech services, how to upload information into our parent portal. So there are a lot of different things that have been created in that, and they're all in one location. And the other great thing about this is that we have chat sessions available, so that if individuals need to connect, there are scheduled times that someone can connect in a Zoom platform, have questions answered, and receive assistance as needed. This week in that same meeting that the superintendent was referring to, it came up that we needed to help parents with our parent portal. And we have a tech teacher who's on that team. And just right in the meeting, he says, well, I can create a screencastify and I will put it up and, and then send it out in his platform as well. So it's really addressing the needs as they arise as well. So mental and emotional health was the number one request of families. It's appeared in multiple questions in the survey. Families are really looking for ways to help their children during this time. So we have a social media campaign where we're sharing information on a Wellness Wednesday. Our last one was on optimistic thinking. So even if I can't do something, switching your thinking, but I still can. And then families can share in that on that platform. We send out communication to resources that are available in the state of Connecticut for Talk It Out hotline. And there are so many available right now, which is wonderful. We also have family community resources in our schools with school-based health centers, and those are up and running and working virtually so families can connect that way. And our individual schools are putting out initiatives, weeks of positivity and trying to really address the needs of the students during this time. And it's a challenge for many. Keeping fit and healthy I'm glad it was up there as a priority, and connecting this week with some phys ed teachers and learning some of the wonderful things they're doing. I had to showcase this young man in the middle because this gym teacher is so creative. He is actually holding a wooden spoon with a taped paper plate and a sock. And so they are sending out videos of activities to time yourself, how many times you can bounce it, if you can get it in the basket. Our teachers are doing workout Wednesdays and sharing physical exercise. Our school administrators are doing that as well. And it's great to see this family here on the right, that the whole family is exercising together and they're sharing those virtually with their school buildings so that others, that others can see it. One particular high school student we have is working on a capstone project for a virtual field day. So the physical exercise is there. They wanted ways to increase it at home without resources. And, clearly you can see there are ways to do it. Our third survey was sent out to the staff, and the staff survey, we learned that we need to recirculate some of these resources for families. One of the questions was, do you feel that you have enough information to connect people to the resources they need? And most do, but we need all staff to be able to do that because connections right now are so important for families. So we are recirculating information and the resources needed. We're doing organized outreach for families, joining agencies to make sure that families have all the support that they need. And the other thing that came up is that we need to recognize successes along the way. So our district put out a platform where school administration can report to central office some of the things that need to be recognized, and to send out those recognitions and positive phone calls from the superintendent and assistant superintendent. And those phone calls go to families, they go to staff members, and they go to students. So our positivity, there's so many things that are positive about this time that we need to look at. And that came, directly from our staff survey. With all of this work, I look back at the guiding principles of the State Department of Ed's framework for family engagement. And just in looking at that, like these 5 bullet points in our guiding principles, we are building collaborative, trusting relationships focused on learning. We're listening to what families say and what interests and challenges they have. This is definitely modeled examples of how families can engage with their children. Sharing information frequently. We have to be careful that we're not sharing information too frequently, and we have to be mindful of how much information we're sending out at one time. But they are, it's the foundation of our family engagement beliefs, right? And so seeing that happen through distance learning, it's just wonderful. And we're definitely responding to social emotional needs of students. And I included the link there as well. So before I answer any questions, I just have to say that even though we are away, distance, we don't have the connectivity with students in classrooms, our level of connectivity right now is so high in district. I had a family engagement meeting last night with teachers and parents from one of our schools, and just putting them in the same platform, not the same room, providing them the opportunity to listen to one another and share their thoughts on what's going on, checking in with them on how they're feeling. These are the things that are most important right now for family engagement. So the relationships we're building right now, I feel, will really impact our future work. And I think we're also accessing more individuals. So just like with Friday Cafe in the past, when we've had 60 or 70 individuals in a physical space, on an online platform, we're able to reach so many more. So I stay with the positives. I look for the optimistic side of things, and I think we're really learning a lot that will help us in the future. So, and I thank you for the opportunity to share some of our work.
Thank you, Julie. Let me see if we can bring Erica back. And a couple of questions. One question was, what platform are you using for those conversations?
We are using Zoom in district.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I wanted to ask, we're talking about how you listen to families, and you had also, in an earlier conversation, talked some about the informal ways you're using, and some of the ways you're going to where families are, and listening. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I belong to all of the town's social media groups. So I am in the Parent Voices group. I am in the Neighborhood Crime Watch group. I am in religious groups. I am in the political groups, because all of these groups in town share things about education. So in communicating, reading the chats that they're discussing, reading the topics that are prevalent, at the time, it helps us to ask questions of families that, we know are out there. We know the questions are there. They may not feel confident enough to bring them to the district, but if we're seeing them out there on social media, we can approach families and say, you may be having trouble with this, or do you have access to the things that you need? Some families, we actually found out they didn't have internet service because of social media platforms, but we hadn't had that connection through emails or school communication. But we're able to locate and recognize needs just from social media.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I wanted to ask, you guys have done a wonderful job listening to families. One of the things that everybody's talking about right now is, what about reopening? And that's a big conversation in many places. What's that going to look like? And so I wanted to ask Erica how you're listening to families about reopening, and how that information is going to be informing what school looks like in East Haven.
So I was fortunate enough to be asked to sit on the local RESC advisory team with a whole bunch of constituents that would be putting together some recommendations and some considerations for the governor and the commissioner who are co-chairing the Reopen Connecticut Task Force. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to provide them with some guidance. And once we receive that guidance, we can engage our families and our community in some thought exchange feedback relative to some of their concerns, some of their thoughts, some of their suggestions. Obviously, we know that the safety and security of students and staff in our community is going to be at the forefront. And that will require a considerable amount of action steps and planning. So the more information we have from our families, the better informed we'll be to meet their needs as they're beginning to walk through our doors again. We will use some of the same methods that we used through distance learning, surveys, sort of scouring all of those local community Facebook and social medias to see where the underlying real concerns are and utilize that information to plan and guide our work forward. But the task force committee that I'm sitting on used a tool called Thought Exchange, which was really phenomenal in eliciting feedback. And the initial response from that tool had the majority of the information coming from parents in various communities across the state. So they're so willing to share their insights and their thoughts and their concerns and their considerations and their recommendations. We need to take those seriously, sort of reorganize and frame them into a structure that's responsive for when our students and staff enter our schools.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. One last question. Someone's asking, do you have a Facebook account perhaps for the professionals, in the district to share with each other? So we know they're under a lot of stress and we are needing to support them as well.
Yes, we do. On our district website, there's a section for parents, but there's also a section for staff. When we first launched distance learning, we realized that, when questions come, they come in chunks, and a lot of staff had similar and same questions, as well as parents coming to us with similar and some of the same questions. So we utilize the expertise and the time and the knowledge of our technology teachers to be responsive in that. And so every time we get a bulk of questions where we're like, well, we need some resources and supports, those technology teachers are putting together screencastifies, little videos and tutorials that are 1 to 3 minutes long, demonstrating exactly what the question is. So, how do I log into my Google account for a parent is a really, or my child's Google account is a really popular question. Put together a little screencastify on that, push it out via social media, post it on our website, and it's there for us to refer parents to and for them to access to. We're doing the same things with staff. How do you do a screencastify? How do you incorporate Flipgrid? When we get those questions, we're putting together quick, short video tutorials that staff can access and immediately employ and utilize the tool.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Erica and Julie. We so appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us East Haven's really well conceptualized and implemented plan. So it's just fabulous to learn from you and learn with you about what's going on.
Oh, I know that we have 8 breakout sessions. So Dina, are you there? There she is. Dina, would you like to just share? Would you like to share the main kind of thing that we need to be thinking about in our that you discussed in your breakout? What were your takeaways?
Yeah, so I'll just do it by question. So I'll just pull one from each question. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dina. I am with Stanford Public Schools. I was breakout group number 1. So one of the things for our first question that came up a lot was around phone calls and text messaging with families. And so we had some teachers and we had some administrators and some programs in that group. And they all kind of talked about using phone calls and text messaging. That was like the best way to kind of communicate with families that they've been using so far.
Great.
With the second group, or sorry, with the second question, I have to look at my notes. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
What they have been hearing is wanting a little bit more communication with teachers, but also they've been hearing that they've been having a hard balance between families that have younger children, so 3 and under, having to tend to them, but then also helping their elementary students and working. And so really that balance of like, how do we navigate all of us being in the home and having to help children who are not able to independently work, but still being there to help support what they're doing from the school. And then the last question around what they're doing with the information, we had a teacher that talked about really just trying to keep up with the constant changes and shift and changes that's coming in. And so as information is coming in, how do we take what we're hearing and then not really reacting right away, but understanding that it's a day-by-day process, but taking that information as well and creating videos or creating something to be able to provide to families and to community agencies as they are getting information from families and from other people in their towns.
Thanks.
And pretty much, and there was a huge appreciation for teachers and making lemonade out of lemons, right? That's the phrase. So yeah, there was a big kudos to the work that teachers are doing right now as well.
Thank you, Dina. How about Julie? Are you here? Your session 2?
Yes, so we had lots of individuals that are supporting students, therapists, social workers. So we had the main point of what we were hearing is that they were trying to find the balance of connecting with families and not over connecting. So we talked about points of contact. Again, like Dina, text messaging was the choice. We had a principal in from Hartford Public Schools that I loved what she shared. She says they went to saying we're physically distant yet socially connected instead of saying distant learning. I thought that was very powerful. Another individual shared, be gentle with yourself because you're experiencing grief, and that we need to remind our families that what they are experiencing is grief, and they need to go easy on themselves, and that it's about connection and not perfection. So so those were my key takeaways there, and very beneficial. Everyone was glad to share in the breakout session, and it really gave everyone the opportunity to be heard. So thank you for providing that.
Thanks, Julie. Judy, I think you're next.
Group number 3. We had a discussion that came back a couple of times to an idea of teamwork between people who are family engagement facilitators and classroom teachers. We talked about how the communication has fallen on classroom teachers, and it has been a lot. And in those schools where they had a family engagement facilitator, that person has been brought in, and their role has actually been shifted to really be part of the teaching and learning work, the bridging between home and school. So, and that was something we hope that relationship will continue to be a strong relationship even after the crisis. The other thing that seemed to be really effective for people was the idea of principals being available for just an open chat, coffee, Zoom, so parents could just come in, ask questions, and get the real answers of what's happening now. So something unscripted without an agenda, but just a place for parents to go, since they're not stopping by the school, but to have that connection with the principal.
Thanks, Judy. I think that Ann Mead is here with us.
Hi, I am, and thank you. Everyone in our group was very appreciative of the sharing and of the opportunity today. I will ditto everything that everyone else has said, but we did talk a little bit about the social emotional effects of this and how families are having anxiety about going back to work, childcare, especially around younger children, and then also sleep disruption and more challenging behaviors. And so the person that was talking about this was talking a little bit more about what Judy just mentioned, in having a scheduled open talk coffee time that parents can share ideas, share strategies, to learn that, yes, we're distanced, but we're socially engaged. I love that, that phrase, and that other parents are in exactly the same boat, and that there are those community resources that are still out there that can help families come to some restitution on, or come to some strategies to be able to help with these behaviors and these anxiety that they're experiencing.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you. How about Jessie? Jessie Livornia, you're here.
Hi, all. Yep, we had a great conversation in group 5. We actually ended up sharing a bunch of different resources, which is phenomenal. So I hope that that can be made public, because I took notes in the Google Doc that was provided to me. We also talked a lot about just making information accessible in ways that families can actually access it, meaning like that it's appropriately, it's in a language that they understand, but also that it's of a literacy level that they also have access to it, because just understanding that we don't all have master's degrees, we don't all have bachelor's degrees, and to actually just make our language at a level that is readable to all. So there were a bunch of other things said, but it sounds like other groups had similar conversations, so we'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you. Regina? Whoops, we can't hear you, Regina, somehow.
Okay, I'm ready. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, so firstly, in terms of sharing resources, there was great interest in seeing the survey that East Haven used. So if you're willing to share that, Julie, a lot of people are interested in seeing that. The other big takeaway, I think, well, maybe two. The first was around families that despite everybody's best efforts are still not reachable, in part because of the reality that some people are socially distancing at different addresses, right? And so how do you connect with those people? The other aspect to it is that there are a number of staff in schools and districts who are using their personal cell phones. And so how do you connect with them without necessarily wanting to share your personal cell phone information? And so there was some information shared about an app where you can create a telephone number to use, you know, via texting, old-fashioned snail mail, just to make sure that you're connecting with families. There's a real concern around early elementary families, particularly kindergarten grades 1 or 2, where there is not a lot of evidence that the families or the students are returning the work or doing the work. There was also a concern expressed about the fact that in a number of districts, teachers really can't do a Zoom call with their students. There's specific prohibitions against kind of having FaceTime with one or multiple students. And so kind of the stress as a teacher of not being able to do that, to have that connection. But I think the other, some of the other concerns have already been shared. But I think the big takeaway is that how people are feeling that this, despite the reason why we're socially distant, that there's connectivity in much deeper and nuanced ways than schools and districts ever experienced when they were in the classroom.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you. So I was group 7, and so I'm going to speak just a little bit about my group, and I want to thank them all. I was very fortunate to have a lot of people who are doing in community agencies and doing kind of the support around a classroom. So the takeaway, I won't reiterate what everyone else is saying, is that parents are feeling like they want a little more help with technology. That's what they're hearing. They're a little nervous about that. Again, the fact that we do need to be taking care of looking at mental health concerns and helping people just to take things, you know, as they come, and really look at them in a in a more prioritized way in some ways. What I also heard was that parents are wanting to know what will happen when they return to school. So they're wanting that information. And thank you, session 7 and all participants. We're talking about the many ways that you are reaching out and responding on a personal level and through surveys. The final thing is that for our group, one of the participants talked about the need for that parents with special needs students have a deep concern about what life will be like when they go back to school, and how will their children kind of catch up, or how will schools be able to meet their transitional needs. So that was really the gist of our group. And the last person, the group 8 is, session 8 is Patrice. Hi, Patrice.
Hello. So we had some technology glitches, which limited some people's ability to be able to communicate, but we had a lot of wonderful responses from the people who were there, and some good chat that can be probably captured later on. Some just quick takeaways in terms of how people are listening. What was clear was the variety of ways. The Remind app came up a number of times, but just a lot of variety of ways people were doing it. And how creatively all of the people who were participating were responding to the different needs, and the kind of impetus that they all had to reach out to each and every family. So there were just a variety of ways in all of that. What they're hearing, two of the things that stand out in terms of what they're hearing is concern about what it's going to be like next year. Are my kids going to all have to wear masks? Fears about what that's going to be like. So they're pivoting to having to respond to those worries about next year. And the second thing was we did spend a little bit of time talking about what they're hearing, worrying, their own fear, all parents' fears in terms of the virus itself. So fears that are limiting children from going outside, keeping children inside and fearful of going outside because they'll get it. The raise in anxiety every morning because the news comes on and they're worried about something else. So again, I was struck by the creativity, compassion, ingenuity of all of the people who are participating in responding to those and in persisting in helping people address those. It was, there were a lot of wonderful ideas and sharings about that. And then finally, the other big takeaway was that one of the things that's come out of this is the collaboration across schools, across roles, to make sure that every student is done. And even so, there are students that they have not yet been able, and families they have not yet been able to connect with. So that remains a concern. So that was the gist from our session. Thank you all to everyone who was there, and I apologize for all those glitches. There were a lot of hiccups in our session.
Okay, I'm sorry. The hiccups. We have to take back that. So I think that we are in our closing remarks right now. We're even a few minutes. We're a few minutes over even that. So if we can, all of us are back again, and we can have our last thank you screen. What we'd like to do is we'd like to definitely thank everyone for participating. Do I have everyone back again? Yep, there we are. So we'd like to thank everyone for certainly their participation. We have another session planned for May 29th, and you will all be receiving information about that. Because of our response, Judy and I are planning additional sessions. So stay tuned. We're talking about more in June. You will be getting all of the results of today. Please make sure people who have really good surveys to submit them to us so we can get them to everyone else. Judy, I don't know if you want to add anything else. Thank you again to Glorimar, and thank you to everyone for being here, Connecticut residents and beyond.
Yeah, and thank you. One of our values in Friday Cafe is that this is our safe laboratory to try out new ideas. So we definitely tried some new ideas today. I know the little few bumps in the road. Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for allowing us to go over time, those that could stay, and be looking. Our next session we will extend and we'll do 10 to 11:30 on the 29th, and then we will be putting out some additional days into June. So with that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.